Percent composition. This is just the percent by mass of each element in a compound, so that's just our definition. So again, we're focusing on the mass of each element, so each separate part of our compound. It is often useful to know that the percent by mass of an element in a compound, so we'll use that to figure out different things, to figure out if we have enough oxygen, for example, in CO2 to get the product that we want. If you know how much oxygen you want to get out of a compound, then we can use that to figure it out. Okay, so here's an example of how we set these up. It's an equation where you just put the mass of your element that you're trying to find over the mass of the whole compound, and then you just multiply that by 100 so that you get your percentage of that certain element. So here's an example of finding the percent of copper in copper 2 sulfide. So all we do is we look at our formula here. We can see that copper, there's 2 of them, and so we have to take the mass of copper. We look that up on the periodic table, 64 grams. We multiply that by 2 to get our mass of our copper, and we plug that in here on the top of our equation because that's the element that we're trying to find. So that's the mass of copper in this whole formula right here. There's 2 coppers. You look up the atomic mass, multiply it by 2, get 128. Then we have to add the mass of this whole formula. So we know we already have 128 grams of copper. We look up the mass of sulfur and it's 32. There's only 1 sulfur here, so we just take 128 and add 32 to it, and we get 160 grams of the whole thing. Then we just divide the 2 numbers, multiply by 100, so about 80% of this substance is copper. Another example, if we have 24 grams of carbon and 64 grams of oxygen, what's the percent composition of each element? Well, we know we have to add these 2 together, the 24 and the 64, to get our total mass, so that's what goes on the bottom, right here, for both parts. And then we put the mass that we have of carbon on the top here to figure out our percentage of carbon. Divide your 2 numbers and get 27%. And then 64 grams is for our oxygen. We divide those 2 numbers and we get 73% for oxygen. So those are 2 examples of how you can figure out your percent composition.